Hi everyone, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. I am Nehal in the growth team of Invigilo AI, and I'll be moderating the session. Today's webinar is about safety blind spots and how AI can help teams see risk earlier before the risks become incidents. We have Vishnu Saran with us today. He is the co-founder and CEO of Invigilo AI. He has spent the last 6 years working with safety teams across Singapore, Saudi, Australia, across in construction, energy, oil and gas, manufacturing. He has also been recognized in Forbes Asia 30 under 30, but more importantly, he has worked very closely with real safety teams. So today's talk is going to be very practical. Vishnu will be sharing his slides and guiding us through the safety blind spots, and we'll open it up for questions afterwards. So, with that, Vishnu, over to you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks, Nihal, for the introduction. And I see a lot of familiar faces attending this webinar. I'm glad that, from the first webinar I've ever hosted till today, there's been a lot of return attendees. So for those who've been here before, welcome again. For those who are joining new, hopefully this is something that you enjoy. So once again, I'm Vishnu. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Invigilo. We're based out of Singapore, and I've pretty much been deploying globally safety technology solutions. So today, I wanted to talk about something pretty unique, safety blind spots. Is a new term that I've been hearing quite a lot from many people that I speak with. It refers to being blind to certain safety issues. And the more we talk about this, the more we looked at incidents, what were happening. A lot of people think it's complacency, but what we figured out was actually nobody really wants an accident to happen. And what really failed was visibility. And I'll be talking more about safety, visibility, and blindness along the way. So today's webinar will be from blind spots to AI-powered operations. And the reason why we want to use AI-powered operations is to increase visibility. And a bit more about the company. We started in 2021, actually, based out of Singapore. We worked closely with the Singapore government. We then scaled up to multiple geographies, close to 200 deployments worldwide. And recently, we've been putting a lot of focus in the Australia and Middle East markets. I have been personally on offshore vessels, manufacturing plants, construction sites, really large, complex work sites. And a lot of these points that I'm talking about today is real groundwork and real conversations that I have with people. And this is things that I've learned on a personal level from the industry. So why is this webinar useful for us? So the main reason is because safety has really gone through a lot of layers, with each layer improving or reducing number of incidents. You have control measures, different types of measures. You have training, you have behavioral improvements. You have a lot of systems already put into place to improve safety. What really will bring the next enhancement is the idea of visibility. Many of you, folks probably are managing like 10, 20 work sites at a time, or large, even if it's just one, it's probably a really large facility, construction site. And what you really don't know is you feel insecure of what is going on the ground. Like, don't really have a visibility on the ground, not just in terms of visible, like physical visibility, but also from a workflow perspective. So what will really bring the next reduction in incident rates is actually making sites more visible. And some of the things that this session will address is why incidents happen, what AI really does, live applications from real sites, from detection and increased visibility to a working loop and mechanism. And all this being said, every single one of you always has a question of cybersecurity and privacy. So what limits can we push while still maintaining privacy? So when we talk about incident rates, you mentioned complacency as one of the most common reasons, but To be very honest, the more we diagnose the issue, complacency is really just excuse. It's really just a lazy assumption of what is happening. And when we dig deeper, what we found out was visibility. So something like complacency is very hard to address, but something like visibility is actually solvable and can be engineered. So visibility refers to two main aspects: physical blind spots and workflow blind spots. Physical meaning actually seeing what's happening, workflow meaning documentations, permits, things that live on a paper. And in fact, safety science or a lot of theorists in the safety space have talked about this quite a while back. And it's very tied into psychology because, firstly, error is normal. Accidents happen, you can't really avoid it. By blaming something, saying it's complacent or attitude problem, you can't really fix anything. And people adapt to the situation and conditions in front of them. So you can't really solve things that you can't see, which is why um, saying things like it's because of attitude or complacency may not always be the best solution. And what visibility brings to top of mind for most people is, first thing is cameras. When you talk about physical visibility, it all comes down to site patrols and cameras. But the thing is, although many of you guys have cameras on site, how many are actually being used, and how much of the data is even being extracted in the first place? Science has shown that 95% of on-screen activity is missed after 22 minutes of monitoring because you can't just sit in front of the screen looking at video feed the whole day. And it's not because they're lazy, or it's not because the people do not want to. It's simply because human brains are not conditioned for continuous monitoring. So how can you expect like a security officer or a safety officer, or even safety directors, to constantly pay attention watching video feed? And the second kind of aspect is workflow blind spots. A lot of data already exists in your organization, but you never really have access to this because reporting takes a lot of paperwork. How many of you have in the past identified something but don't really document it? You've seen something, but you're like, you know what, it's just something minor. I already have documented this a while back, so I'm not going to do the paperwork again. I'm sure a lot of this happens. Observations remain in spreadsheets. A lot of information remain in spreadsheets. You just log and never really take action about it. Permits and even digital permits are a lot very manual, and it's very, isolated. It is just sent somewhere or pasted somewhere in the office. And a lot of times accidents and injuries happen first before a diagnosis happens. So from a physical perspective, we have blind spots. And from an observational and data perspective, you also have tons of blind spots. So what this does is gives attention to the 8 most common blind spots that what we have discovered and many companies actually face. Firstly, subcontractor mobilization. Every single week you have new subcontractors. Many of them don't even complete induction before doing work. Shift change blind spots, lifting zones that drift. Lifting operations could happen in zone A, but the next morning it's in zone B. So you don't really have pay attention to these changes. Very far away and difficult to reach areas. Night times, weekends, places where you don't really have enough supervision. Toolbox talks may not reach everybody, not just because they're not present, but also because of translation barrier. Permits that get approved, but not everybody is in loop. And you kind of one of the other most common thing we've noticed is you just do something like take a shortcut and promise to put it back once a task is completed, but it's never really put back to its original state. So a lot of these blind spots exist, and many of you would probably relate to these things, and in fact might have identified way more blind spots than these. So what we actually can do to address these blind spots or diagnose this in the first place is, firstly, you could do something very simple. Look at the last 2-3 years of incidents, the major ones, or things that you remember, and put them on a camera map. How many of these are already covered by cameras? Are there clusters that are outside camera views? So this is a very simple task. You guys could do it, and you already can see physical blind spots. Secondly, how many near misses or how many reports does your different teams produce? Do they talk a lot but they don't document? That's another blind spot, workflow blind spots. Another thing which I've done in the past is specifically for train maintenance. I've visited train stations at like 2, 3 a.m. How many of you do walks at 10 a.m. and also do walks at 2 a.m.? Because the things that happen at night when nobody's watching with little lighting is a huge visibility lapse as well. And a lot of permits are submitted. That's great. But if you take a permit and follow it to the field and check by the time and location, is this really happening? How close to the permit are these guys pursuing the task? So all of this actually, even before technology, you already can do some of these checks. But of course, if you really want to completely close the gap, you definitely need to rely on technology. That will be covered in the second half of this session. So a lot of times, there's hundreds of near misses. Is the iceberg theory, where many things are almost entirely visible, and only some of them are incidents that are reported, and only the serious ones are visible. And you'll be surprised, but many minor incidents go unnoticed because they want to just finish work or they don't really want to go through the process of reporting. So this is where technology comes in. Many of you have been in the safety space for over 20 years, and you've seen the difference in technology adoption. In the 90s, like early 2000s, you usually use rules like motion detection, using cameras to identify certain people, but that's just very one-dimensional. There's tons of false alarms. The second layer of wave of AI came when it's through historical data. That's what's happening now. Although it's publicly famous now in 2026, but if you're surprised, AI in this form was already prevalent in 2014, 2015, and it's all based on statistics and historical data. But right now, the coolest part of AI is it's transitioning from a learning-based approach to a reasoning-based approach. Think of it like an AI safety assistant, something that reasons for you, something that not just brings up issues, but tracks it and recommends things and follows up with you like an intern that you wished you had. So yeah, and the underlying technology is not magical. It is just pattern recognition. So blind spots are all repetitive patterns, and AI is just recognizing these patterns in scale. Things like your cameras, things like your documents already exist and see things 24/7. What you just need to add is a layer of thinking and then add a layer of action. So the AI can help you think on all the things that it sees, after which addresses the relevant concerns to people that can then take action, which is what helps to improve blind spots. So there's 5 main technologies that are being used in the safety landscape these days. You have video intelligence, covers the area. Wearables are more person dependent. IoT sensors are environmental. Digital workflows match the process, and predictive analysis are more, overall trends and site perspective. And what this means is that with every single type of technology or division, you're covering different parts of the blind spots, and they all combine together to become a very effective solution. So in Visualo's case, what we do is specifically cameras and sensors. So one of the most powerful sensors you already have in many sites is cameras. They never stop working, very easy to deploy, connect to existing cameras to identify blind spots 24/7. You have tons of things that identify risks and events before incidents, missing barricades, suspended load, people that's fallen down, speeding, and the list goes on. All of these things are not just accidents that are happening, but near misses that typically go unnoticed, adding on to the blind spots. What happens now is what typically used to be a manual patrol involving people walking around the site, maybe once or twice a day, and manual documentation when something happens, now transforms into as every single zone being watched 24/7. People get notified within seconds, and you start seeing trends within the first week. And apart from the eyes on the ground, you also have other types of sensors and eyes that help you gain more visibility. Environmental sensors, worker variables, proximity, each kind of workflow or each kind of technology addresses different types of blind spots. Environmental for one, behavior for another, and trends and statistics another. So all of this contribute to your risk register and help you to curb things before they happen. The second aspect of blind spots, which are being digitized, is the process gaps. You apply for permits, but the permits are not verified. But what if you could connect permits to cameras? So by simply telling the permit what cameras it is deployed on, helps add a visual verification layer. Reporting near misses. So what if you could just take a phone, type a voice note, say a voice note, and it creates an incident report, creates GSAs, creates documents on the fly. All the observations that you get on the ground from cameras, from permits, go to a centralized dashboard, generating trends and statistics. And the most powerful thing, which adds a lot of value, is self-driving nature. So actions start chasing themselves. So let's say you have not closed the case. The digital safety officer can then remind you like, hey, this is pending for the last 3 days. Can you do something about it? If you don't do something, this would happen. These are some things that could be done. And all of this is not exotic. All this exists. It's more about adopting it and choosing the right way of adopting. And the beautiful part is with current AI tools, a lot of years of reports have been collected. The AI should never decide action. They should only draft things for you to review. And with translation AI, you're able to translate everything into multiple languages. For us, in our case as well, we work with multi-country, multi-geographies, and by simply translating the text into different languages, there's a lot of enhanced adoption as well. So what happens now from an operational perspective is you don't just detect things, you didn't alert the relevant person. That person then has to close, and after closing, there's a learning set in stone as well. So many solutions that just do reporting and detection to begin with, that is just the beginning. Because when you detect something but nobody does anything about it, that is still a blind spot, and it could add more damage than rectification. So it's about identifying the blind spots and doing things about it. So what this means is, in essence, when you start effectively adopting such solutions, you now get an AI colleague or an AI intern, someone who assembles the paperwork, someone who spots patterns, and someone who helps you close the open loop. Overdue actions get followed up automatically, and a lot of this is just already available, but it's about tying in with the right workflows and attaching different parts of your safety operations with the right technology to remove the blind spots. So what is actively running, at least for us, we have over 60 safety risks being identified in real time. Behavior, statistics, critical risks, all of these things get picked up. What is being deployed, what this brings to the table is very valuable detections. Top risks get addressed. Each risk will then be addressed to certain people who then have to close these conditions. And a lot of times when pilots get started, when this kind of technology get implemented, What happens is because no proper communication, and more importantly, the tool is a technology tool, but not a safety technology tool. It's one thing to do AI, but another thing to understand safety and then do AI. A lot of the detections come out and they're not really valuable. Safety teams just turn it off. Alert fatigue is real when you have a lot of blind spots that don't really mean, or more like when technology says there's a lot of blind spots, but to you, they're not really blind spots. Secondly, there is no key stakeholder or champion. So when an event or when a blind spot gets identified, who responds to this? Who is responsible for this? Next, there's no operational process being modified. Yes, there's a lot of action, there's a lot of activity being done, but how do you modify operations? How do we take these learnings and change workflows at a big scale? And the last thing is where it fails is especially in Australia or European countries where the workforce doesn't get communicated of these things, and there's lack of trust and transparency because ultimately tools like this are not just for the safety officer, but it's more for the people on the ground. And if you don't communicate this effectively to the people, eventually there's no improvement or there's no acceptance from the ground. And the whole idea is, when you talk about privacy, when you talk about safety, it's about behavior and changing the mindset and not surveilling something. It's not about identifying who, it's about identifying how to change things. Safety conditions, not tracking productivity. It's about identifying someone is under the load, but not who is under the load. Guardrails. So one of the things that most AI companies that do not operate in the industrial safety space, they don't really have the relevant context or guardrails that understand safety operations, and that causes things to fail. And ultimately, effectively communicating to people from day one that this is an AI safety colleague, this is going to help you out and not something that's surveilling you. So what we have learned over the years is if the workforce on the ground does not trust a system, it usually doesn't kick off. It usually doesn't fly. So it's all about acceptance and getting the majority to kind of buy in to this as well. So a few things that's being done specifically in the safety space and AI space, particularly in Europe, you have the AI Act getting implemented. You have the Australian privacy laws. A lot of these things actually govern workplace videos. It involves documentation, it involves like a human oversight. So when something gets picked up, it is still the human's responsibility. It's not, you can't just push the blame onto the AI. And all of this technology should just be a tool, not really replacing safety managers. So one of the things that, as you guys go on the journey of adopting technology, is do you have such privacy guardrails? Do you have such regulatory requirements? Do you understand what kind of information can be shared and what needs to be blurred out? So that's things that companies like us have a lot more experience in. And if you really push it to the limit, some of the things that AI really cannot do is, end of the day, safety is very experience driven, and it's a lot of it depends a lot on the glare, the visibility in terms of lighting, blurring, glare, backlight, things like this. So you could see a lot of false positives. It's about finding the balance between how much value it adds versus how many false positives emerge, not just from vision AI, but any type of solution, right? So understanding whether the value it generates is more than the burden that it might give because of false positives. Things that also are limits is technology can only see what it's been deployed on. If you do not have cameras, if you do not have sensors, if you don't have the right tools, you can't get the information yet. So there's a limit on how much you can deploy. It does not understand context. For example, let's say there's a lifting operation. Sometimes the person has to be within a certain radius, because he's helping to modify or do a routine inspection. So that is something that it may not understand. It could be addressed by combining permits and digital workflows with vision, but that's still a stretch. And the last thing, which is where safety teams are very important in, is culture building. AI cannot do culture building. It's still human dependent. You are the best at people transformation, and safety is all about behavior and culture. So AI with Envision, what we really do is providing tools, and we are a force multiplier, not a replacement. Yep. And what happens now is with blind spots, what happens is you have a lot of near misses, you have a lot of lack of reporting. Things keep repeating, the same mistakes keep happening because it's not being addressed, and it gets diagnosed as complacency or lack of training. But with visibility, what now happens is the right supervisor gets alerted, the right near misses gets identified, behavior gets addressed, trends get detected, and actually you can start diagnosing the actual root cause. So it's not about changing the worker, it's not about training them further, it's not about saying they're complacent, but it's about understanding why things are really happening on the site. And that's what safety blindness and addressing safety blindness is really all about. So one thing which things could be done, or what we have, based on interactions that I had with a bunch of safety people, reduce the usage of complacency. It's really about, it's not an accident. It's about what they couldn't see. Audit different types of blind spots, the physical and workflow. What are some of the things that you do not have information on? Start with some of the cameras that you already own. You don't even have to install any AI. You can just literally see the incidents that you have had in the past and map them to the cameras. 90% of the times, it has already happened on the camera, just that you have not seen it yet and you've not addressed it. And once you have some information of this kind of issues, it's really about addressing the mistake and closing the loop. There's no real point in reporting it and just leaving it as a report, because what's the use, right? Like if there's a notification, if there's a finding, every finding needs to have a responsible person who closes the loop. And the last thing is, when you start evaluating AI technology, software solutions to address some of these things, privacy, transparency, and expectations. It's not about promising you the world, it's about promising you what can and cannot be done. And in safety, technology has only so much understanding. So telling you guys what is the limitations of technology is what's important. And with that, you get a much better and holistic, conclusion to safety blindness. So in the past, you've done a lot of guarding, you have a lot of sensors, but really with all of this data and AI, you can start addressing and paying attention to the right issues. That's the end of my presentation. Thanks so much for listening. And if you would like to contact me, LinkedIn or Vishnu@invigilo.sg. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vishnu. That was definitely a very real walkthrough of how we can embed AI and what are the real blind spots that people usually have.
Yeah, and I'm good. I'm good. Thanks so much for all of you guys for attending the session. And I've seen a lot of familiar faces. I really enjoy working with you, and thanks for tuning in. We're going to be trying to do a few more webinars regularly, so stay tuned and looking forward to the next session. And yes, Cam, I'll see you in Singapore soon. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.